Welcome to the Truth Seeker's Guide, an uplifting podcast that explores the pursuit of truth through various disciplines such as history, spirituality, religion, philosophy, inner work, and science. Welcome to the Truth Seeker's Guide. Why is it we do the things we can't change? Or why is it we try to change things and we cannot change them? Things that we're going to work on inside, which I feel that's the key for true change. Let me actually pull this up real quick. We got a verse that I wanted to talk about today. This is not something new, of course. Scripture's been talking about this for a while. Paul plainly stated in Romans 7, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, that I do. Even Paul, a man of deep spiritual maturity, confessed this conflict. And what we're going to look at here is that we're dealing with two natures. We're dealing with the flesh, and we're dealing with the spirit. And these two natures are what are fighting against each other constantly 24 hours a day. So let's start with a good example of something practical. Let's say that your significant other, you're speaking to them and you ask, hey, can you take out the trash for me tomorrow? And the person's like, yeah, sure. And so in the next day you wake up and you didn't hear your alarm, you're running a little late, and you're rushing out and you realize, oh wait, the garbage wasn't taken out. My wife was supposed to take the garbage out. What happened? And then you get pissed inside, you get angry, you start having these thoughts of like, every time I tell her she doesn't do anything, how come I can't get any support from her? What's going on? Why is it that she's like this? Oh, I can't take it. And you start with all these negative thoughts and negative things in your mind. And then, of course, what happens when she gets home and you start to see her and she starts to come at you in some way, or maybe you forgot something as well, immediately what's going to come out of you, even if you say to yourself, because I've done this, and you say to yourself, all right, God, give me patience. I don't want to lose control. I'm just going to respond normally. And then as soon as she comes and pushes that button, you come out and say, oh, what? I can't believe you. Why? You never helped me. You didn't even take out the garbage. You told me you would, and I was running late, and I even got... So it starts in this whole process. And what happens? After that, you know, for the most part, most of us would feel in a certain way like, oh, man, you know, yeah, she should have taken out the garbage, but I shouldn't have spoken to her like that. So, and you develop this pattern when you say, okay, I'm sorry, please help me not do this again. And then the next time it happens, or something similar, the same thing happens over and over and over. And it gets to the point where you get frustrated. It feels almost like you're like in this cycle of hell where you just want to change and you want to do something different and talk with respect and talk patiently. But for some reason, the only thing that comes out of you is anger, bitterness, frustration. And you want to change it, and you can't. And you get stuck in this cycle. And I could say I've lived this for years, and I thought I couldn't get out of it. I thought for a long time, I said to myself, which I'm sure we'll all agree, is that you start to tell yourself, well, I guess this is who I am. I guess nobody's perfect. Only Jesus is perfect. And I guess God would forgive me every single time. And I just got to keep asking for forgiveness. And if I keep doing it, it's just who I am. But the reality is not the case. And I'm a testimony of it, because I'm not saying I perfected it, but I've gotten to the point where I understand why these things happen. So let's look at it like this. We talked about the heart being a garden, a subconscious mind, a garden where our personality and character resides, right? The problem is we think that even though we think these negative thoughts about our significant other or about something else, that we think that as long as we just think it in our mind secretly, but as long, that's okay. But if I don't respond to what I'm thinking, as long as I do that, I'm okay. But that's where we go wrong. The problem is we don't realize that every thought we have, negative thought, positive thought, whatever thought we do have, it's a seed that's planted into this garden. Once it's planted in this garden, it's only a matter of time before it produces a fruit. So in this case, let's call it the good fruit and the bad fruit, right? The only thing is, every single time that this would happen, and I would tell myself, oh God, please help me so bad fruit doesn't come out. And I want to put out a good fruit, please, in the moment, right? And then this happens again, and they push your button. Immediately the bad fruit comes out, and you say, why, God, I wanted to produce a good fruit. So the problem is when we are in the moment and we want to change the bad fruit into a good fruit, right? We say to ourselves, okay, well, God, help me change this bad fruit into a good fruit. But the problem is that's impossible. You can't change an apple into a mango because you want to change it into just transform that into a mango. You have to change the seed. And that's the problem. Most of us don't want to go through the process. We just want magic. We just want the bad fruit to become good fruit. But there's work involved here. So we have to produce a good fruit. We can't just say, God, help us change it into a good fruit. We have to plant the good seed. And that's the problem. We understand that change is not just instant. We have to say to ourselves, well, I already produced the bad fruit. God, forgive me. But from now on, I'm going to plant good seeds in my heart, and this will produce eventually a good fruit. And that's the only way we're going to be able to change, to produce a good fruit. Okay, so let's just say, what are the seeds? Our thoughts. See, the thing is, this is how it works from the beginning to end. Our thought becomes an action. Our action becomes a habit. Our habit becomes a character. Our character becomes a destiny. So it all comes down to what we think. And if we don't change the thought, we'll never, ever change the fruit. So it's just simple. Let's practically put it into the scenario. Let's use the same scenario with this understanding. So let's say, you wake up in the morning, you didn't hear your alarm, you're running late, and then you realize, oh wow, my wife didn't take out the garbage like she said she would. Instead of thinking, I can't stand her, she's the worst, this is it, she just always does this, she never helps me, you can say to yourself, that's fine, she probably forgot, didn't do it on purpose, she was probably running late herself, maybe she didn't hear the alarm, whatever the case may be. We give her grace and mercy just like God gives us grace and mercy and understanding and forgiveness, and we change that thought that we had before that we thought was secret, that was not going to do nothing. We change it into a good thought by saying, listen, I forgive her. We all make mistakes. I'll take the garbage. Even if I'm running late, it's okay. It is what it is now, and I'm going to be okay with it. I'm going to keep my peace in the situation and think good thoughts. I'm going to plant good seeds in my garden in regards to this situation, right? So now when you come home at night, right? Because we always think what we think is secret. So under the first scenario, as soon as that person pushes a button, even if you say you're not going to say all these bad things, they come out of you automatically like an explosion. But if you have the good seeds and you planted the good seeds in your heart in the beginning, then when that happens and she comes and pushes your button with scenario number 2, then now it's different. Nothing bad comes out because you planted nothing bad. So now you're going to produce the good fruit instead of the bad fruit. And now you don't even have to pray for it. It's a result of what we did. It's a result of our inner obedience and surrender to God's truth instead of our selfish lies and deception, our desires, our flesh, what we want, our ego. So this is to me the power of real change. And this is what I struggled with through many years. Instead of me getting close to people and loving people the way I wanted to, all I did was push them away. And then I would hate myself for pushing them away. And then I would try to separate myself from this person thinking that I'm doing them good by being apart from them. And so this becomes a pattern that always brings you to isolation, and this isolation is dangerous. This is how the enemy conquers. If we know anything about, let's say, the art of war, I don't know much, but the little I do know about this book is that, divide and conquer, right? One of the few things I know, divide and conquer. If the devil is able to divide and conquer, that's how he wins. As long as you're isolated, you're weak, you're lost. You're just a candle in the middle of space that will get blown away very easily. But if you are united, it's harder for that to be extinguished. So the key is we have to be aware, because unfortunately we can't catch what we're thinking in the moment and submit it to the obedience of Christ if we don't know when it happens. Meaning, if you're in war, spiritual warfare, and you know how to defend yourself, and you have the right armor, you have the right weapons, you have the right training, you have everything, but you're not vigilant, it serves for nothing. If you're blind and you're just in the dark and you don't know what's happening, it serves you nothing. So in this case, we need to think about what we think about. We need to be aware of our thoughts. And I believe that's probably one of the hardest things in changing. One of the hardest things in maturity that Paul talks about in growth, because we need to be aware of what's happening in our mind. And one of the things the devil's doing, especially in today's day and age, is distractions. We lose the ability to focus and be aware of what we're doing in the moment. We're so lost in the future and the past and in what we want and what we need and what we don't have, what we didn't do, what we couldn't. So we're lost. And so if we're not aware and present, it could be as simple as, you want silence with God, but you start scrolling on the phone with Instagram or social medias, but you really want silence, but you keep doing the scrolling instead of the silence with God. All this has to do with what are we planting in our heart. If we constantly scroll on Instagram or whatever it is, it becomes a habit. If it becomes a habit, it becomes part of your character. If it becomes part of your character, it becomes your destiny. So be aware of what's happening. Be aware that every time you decide to scroll or watch television or do these things other than trying to grow in some way inwardly, every time we decide that, we are forming a new neural pathway. We're forming a habit that's going to always put us automatically onto the path we don't want. So there is a choice there we have to make. We do have to have this courage to want to change. And this goes for anything in life. Anything that we see in life takes this practice. And we can't, and I use this analogy, but we can't run a marathon without starting to push ourselves, because obviously if we haven't ran or jogged in years, we can't just be like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow. Or if you try to even run 2 miles tomorrow, if you haven't done it before, it's not going to be easy. In fact, if you try to run a mile, it's not going to be easy. But you push yourself through this process, and eventually, after pushing yourself over and over and repeating it, it gets easier. And when it gets easier, then you just have to keep it going so it stays easy, but it becomes easier that way. And then spirituality and warfare is the same way. If we made it a habit to always be in a toxic relationship, if we made it a habit to always scroll on Instagram, if we make it a habit to think a certain way, then the result will always be the same. And in fact, the rut gets bigger, and it's gonna be more difficult for us to get out of it. So we have to make a choice, especially in the beginning, a more difficult choice, because it takes more will. There's gonna be more resistance to be able to make this change. But once we do make that decision and then reinforce that decision with our inner faith and belief to do it this way, instead of scrolling, let me read the Bible a little bit. Instead of doing that, let me read a book. Instead of watching TV, let me go jogging. The point is, we make it a habit to better ourselves, to change. Instead of me constantly thinking this way about my relationship that's toxic, let me try thinking about it a different way that God tells me to think about it, or truth shows me how to think about the situation, instead of following our own desire. And this will produce change. But bottom line is, if we're not vigilant in our thoughts and we're not aware of them, we can't take them captive, and we can't change them. And if we can't change our thoughts, we can't change our actions. If we can't change our actions, we can't change our habit. If we can't change our habit, and so on until it becomes your destiny. So make a choice. What do you choose to think? Is it going to be hatred, anger, fear, doubt? Or is it going to be love, understanding, mercy, grace? So the point is, we need to make that choice. And I see it even if we talk about even energy, we understand that through quantum mechanics, that on a quantum level, we are 99.9% energy, and only that little tiny bit left is matter, which means that in a way, it's all energy and frequency. So if you choose to think negatively about anything, it could even be, you can be fully justified about your thought. But if you choose negatively, you're not affecting anyone externally. You're only affecting yourself internally. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Carolyn Leaf, a neuroscientist, a Christian neuroscientist that I read her book and I listened to her, she mentioned that a negative thought in our brain is toxic to our brain, is toxic to our body. Because if you think about it, when you think a thought, it's electromagnetic pulse, it creates neuroplasticity, there's chemical change, and this chemical change is spread through the whole entire body. So we realize now, being able to measure some frequencies and things, that everything that's like death, sickness, negativity, lies, hatred, has a low vibrational frequency. Everything that's love, understanding, health, life, has a higher vibrational frequency. So at the moment that we start to attract, so we start to think negatively, then we attract negative things and we produce negative things. And this is also proven through neuroscience, quantum energy. Like attracts like, the law of attraction. But if we continue to think negatively, then we produce negative things in our body, we produce negative actions in our life, and our life becomes a negative life. If we continue to think positively, then we produce positive things in our body, we produce positive things in our life, and so on. But it goes further than just thinking negative and positive, because I can think that having vengeance for someone who did something bad to me could be a positive thing because they deserve it. And so we got to be careful on what we decide, what is positive and what is negative. So this is where we need a ruler. This is where we need something to regulate this. This is where we need something to contrast what is right and wrong. And through research, and a lot of you, I'm sure, have done this research and everything, I can tell you and I could say that the Bible does have truth, and truth abundantly. And it's the only thing I've ever seen with truth. Why? Because it actually also correlates with other truths. For example, no one else in the whole world, Confucius, philosophers, Plato, Socrates, all these other people Buddha, all these people that gave us insight, and good insight, for some of them are good insight. I'm not saying they're wrong, but none of them said, love your enemy. None of them said, turn the other cheek. I mean, that's unheard of. It's a little crazy in fact, because it's like, that's unheard of. And when this truth was revealed in me and I started renewing my mind with the Spirit and with truth, it aligned with this. It was perfect. It was like, this is truth. God is truth. Christ is the way, truth, and life, because He is the only thing that completes truth. Meaning, if I hate my enemy, then I start developing darkness and negative things in my body, sickness, and I start spreading negativity and darkness, and it just becomes horrible in all aspects. But if I'm vibrating high, let's say I'm full of the Spirit, I'm happy, I'm in truth, I'm joyful, I'm peace, I have a high vibration, and someone comes with a low vibrational frequency, and I let them consume me, even if they're attacking me, and instead of me turning the other cheek, I decide to slap them in their cheek, I lower my vibrational frequency. I'm in the same darkness as this person. So like Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness can't drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So we can't, if we go to the same level as our enemy or as our offender, then we become as dark as them. We're only hurting ourselves on a biological level, spiritual level, mental level, and then we're spreading darkness. We're now the agent of darkness, and we're influencing darkness in our external world. But if we remain on a high vibrational frequency, if we remain in the spirit of truth and understanding and see that they're in a low vibration, which means if they're coming at us with anger, with any frustration, then we understand that they're suffering. They're actually in that same hell that God took me out of. And if I could see that, I know they don't want to do what they're doing. Just like I don't want to do bad things that I don't want to do, and I keep doing it, right? So now, instead of me getting angry, this is what Christ tells us, now I could see them with love and pray for them in my mind, of course, not out loud. Pray for them in my mind, for them to be liberated from the suffering, to love them and forgive them, and to see them in that light, which keeps me at joy and peace, high vibrational, which means they can't penetrate. And some of the laws of energy say that high vibrational frequencies consume low vibrational frequencies. So not only will they hit a wall when you do that, but then you'll soften them. You'll be able to help them through that light that's in you, not you, take them out of that darkness. All you did was obey. All you did was surrender your desire, your ego, your lies, your deception, your flesh to the spirit, to truth, to God. And you obeyed and saw it for what it was in the spirit, in the unseen realm. Instead of seeing the physical aspect, which is someone attacking you and you want to defend yourself, you're seeing someone in the unseen world where they're actually suffering and they're in pain and they don't want to be what they're doing. Maybe they're struggling in their home, at work, whatever the case may be. And now you see what's not seen, which allows you to do the truth, which allows you to forgive them, which allows you to pray for them, so it allows you to keep yourself also in that peace. So which is why Christ tells us, that it's not just enough to say, I'm not going to kill someone because I go to jail. But we have to know that if we're angry with our brother or sister in our mind, that can develop into violence eventually, whether it's through our words, through our actions, even death, even murder. So it's more important that we understand the root of the problem for the change, for the growth, for the maturity, for the spiritual growth. It's in how we think, and it's in what we're allowing in our mind and in our heart that produces that fruit. So it's very important that we, one, know what truth is. This is why I say Holy Scripture and God and Yeshua is truth. Know what truth is. So now, when you know what truth is, you can say, I'm not going to believe the lie that I'm thinking. I'm going to take that lie captive, submit it to the truth, and replace it with gratitude, with truth, with love, with mercy, with grace. And this will not only keep you protected, but it keeps you protected so you can give what you have and you can help others and you can spread love, the kingdom of God, the light on this earth as it is in heaven. And so this is the things we're going to continue speaking about this season. We're just touching on how is it that we normally want to change, but we can't. This is what it is. Watch your thoughts. The reason you can't change your actions is because you haven't changed your thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your actions. Change your beliefs, change your actions. And when you change your actions, you change your habit. And when you change your habit with persistence, you change your character. And when you change your character with persistence and understanding, then you change your destiny. Sometimes we can't change, and it maybe isn't because of what we're thinking in the moment, but it could be from the wounds that we haven't healed. So it's not weakness, but it could be something we haven't healed from our past, something that is in there that we haven't acknowledged, that we haven't processed properly, that is also producing things we don't want to produce. So we have to acknowledge we have wounds, we have things we have to heal, we have things we have to acknowledge for this new truth to take action. And this is where silence comes in. This is where meditating on truth comes in. This is where listening to in silence comes in. So we have to know and be honest with ourselves. We're only as powerful as we are honest. I think Craig Rochelle said that. I'm probably butchering his name, but the point is we are only as powerful as we are honest. Okay, and it's true. If we don't acknowledge that we have wounds that we haven't addressed, they will keep arising with actions that we don't want. So we have to remember, especially because the enemy will use influence through demonic influences, like having thoughts in your mind like, see, you're not good enough, or I told you can't do it and you'll never be able to, and why? So all these things you got to remember, if it's based in doubt and fear, it's not from God. If it's based in doubt and fear, it's not truth. You have to acknowledge it's not your righteousness. You can't do it. I can't do it. But the truth will set us free. If we just believe the truth and apply it in our lives, in our mind, then it will set us free. But we do have to apply it. But it's not, so whenever those lies, the enemy tries to influence us by saying those things, I want you to say, I rebuke you. It's not my righteousness. Christ already did this for me. It's him in me. So you're going to have to deal with him, not me. And you continue getting up and doing this, healing knowing that the wounds you've caused, or maybe the wounds you've had that someone did to you, or something that you did to someone. One, if someone did something to you, you have to learn to forgive and to let that go, or it's going to keep you in pain. Or if you did something to someone, ask for forgiveness and let it go, or it'll keep you in pain. And remember, it's not, spiritual warfare could be as subtle as the enemy trying to distract you, taking your attention. It could be something as simple as doubt, fear. It could be something as, keeping you busy enough and distracted enough so you can't search for truth or find God or have moments of silence. Keeps you entertained by scrolling on Instagram, so that way you don't have any time for God or meditation or anything. So be careful, be on guard, be vigilant in the spiritual war to make sure that these things are used to trigger you. They're used to keep you down. They're used to keep you in this funk. So let's just remember to apply truth to this by reading truth, by applying truth, by repeating truth. And through this repetition, through this, call it spiritual exercise, you will be stronger, you will get stronger, and you will produce good fruit. But to do so, as I mentioned, we have to plant good seed, and then we have to water the good seed, and then it will automatically produce good fruit. Our heart, it's our subconscious mind, which means what we plant and what we tell our subconscious, it believes it no matter what, whether it's truth or lies or light or darkness. It'll believe it, it'll accept it, and then it comes out of you automatically. I'm sure you guys have heard many people who have done some crazy things in the past and killed people and done things and said to themselves or on camera, I don't know, I blacked out and I did it. I don't know what happened. And that's because we don't realize that if we keep planting seeds of hatred and bitterness and anger and frustration and all these and anger and all these things, eventually it produces a fruit that's automatic. You don't have control of that. It's already, just like if you go and you plant seeds, a bunch of seeds for apples, and you planted seeds for apples, but you didn't know they were apple seeds. You thought they were orange seeds. Eventually, you're going to have a bunch of apple trees, and you can't do nothing about it. They're going to be produced. It's not like you're going to be able to change it and say in the middle of the process and say, you know what? No, let's convert this into an orange tree. No, it's too late. So that's something we also have to take into consideration. When that comes out of you, all we can do at that moment is ask for forgiveness, ask for God to forgive us, and to realize why we did it, interrogate our action and thought, and then so we don't do it again. How? How we discussed in another episode, that we don't just see the new mess. We have to figure out where the mess came from. So we don't just say, okay, I lost my temper and forgive me, I won't do it again. But then I have to ask myself, why did I lose my temper? So then you start to think, oh, that's right. The other day when this happened, I had these thoughts and I believed these thoughts. And that's what caused it. Because belief is very important. It will destroy everything, even if it's not true. So for example, if you have a beautiful relationship with your wife, right? And someone comes to you and tells you your wife is cheating on you, and she's not cheating on you, but someone tells you that, and it could not be, it's not true. And this is not even true. It doesn't even happen. But if you believe it, will it affect your relationship? Absolutely. If you believe that lie, your whole relationship will be affected. Your whole life will be affected by that one belief. So be on guard, be vigilant on what we let in our mind. That will produce an action. And if we believe it, even if it's a lie, that lie will become your truth. So if this episode spoke to you in any way, sit on it, pray on it, meditate on it, and more important than all of that, apply it in your life, and there will be change. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me on this journey on the truth seeking. And remember, you can make it heaven, you could make it hell. The choice is yours.